It's March 22nd, 2019. Welcome back to Destination Pro Wrestling. My name is Tony. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Tango with Tango. Today I want to actually make a video because we have two news stories that I thought was very interesting. And we're going to start off with a NXT Superstar who asked for his release. Maybe not the biggest name, obviously, on the roster. Only one televised appearance. But this is actually a pretty big blow to WWE. But it's a very interesting thing. So we are going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about AEW announcing All In 2 because we do know that's official. They're coming back to Chicago for All In. And I don't know if All In is going to be like AEW's WrestleMania, but a lot of people have kind of mentioned that. So I want to have this conversation here with you guys on youtube.com/Destination Pro Wrestling. So with that being said, if you guys could do me a favor and click that subscribe button. Over 19,000 subscribers. I couldn't believe it. I woke up today and I saw that. Today's a good day. Today's a good day for Destination Pro Wrestling, but today is not a good day for Stacy Irvin Jr. because it looks like he requested his release from NXT. Now, you guys are probably looking at this video and listening, and you guys are probably thinking, definitely overhyped, but not overhyped at all. Stacy Irvin Jr. Is a very interesting component to the NXT roster because he's only had one televised match on NXT, and then he's been widely popular throughout the house shows that have been taking place, for NXT, mainly in Florida. Now, for those who don't know who Stacy Irvin Jr. is, basically a lot of people were expecting him to make a pretty quick jump into 205 Live. And the reason why is because he is a very, very exciting athlete to watch. For those who don't know, he's a famous gymnast who signed with WWE. And when he signed with WWE, a lot of people thought that, he might lack the character and he might lack the skill set to be a good pro wrestler. But of course, he is somebody who has definitely gotten people to talk about him. And largely due to his in-ring skill, being a former gymnast and being able to go into NXT and the Performance Center, he is somebody that a lot of people were kind of excited to see go into the WWE main roster. And the reason for this is because he is not some indie wrestler. He didn't come from Impact or ROH, which obviously a large percentage of people in NXT obviously come from indie wrestling. So you guys are probably thinking, why is this a topic for YouTube? So I want to break this down because a lot of people who don't know who Stacy Irvin Jr. is, I want to kind of introduce you guys to a very interesting scenario. Pro Wrestling Sheet, Ryan Satin had come out with this article dropping the news that he requested his release due to a concussion scare. And it's really interesting hearing that a concussion scare is getting this guy to request his release. This is not a situation. I know some people like to pinpoint this, but some people think that, every time somebody asks for the release, it's because of AEW or something like that. And that doesn't seem to be the case today. But what it really seems to be the case is this guy was not prepared for how big wrestling can be and how much it could really impact your livelihood. Having a concussion scare makes a lot of sense for somebody who doesn't have wrestling experience to ask for the release. But at the same time, too, it's kind of a crappy situation because he is somebody that a lot of people touted to eventually go to 205 Live, especially, you don't have to be the most charismatic talker in the business to be on 205 Live, but this is one of those situations where you can still make a career out of being a good athlete, and being a good athlete turning into a good wrestler. There was a lot of clips that I've seen on Twitter, and I highly encourage you guys follow Twitter accounts that go to these live shows because this is how you start to become introduced to talent that you may have not seen before. And I seen this video of Stacy Irvin Jr. basically just doing a whole bunch of flippity flips, and it was some really cool stuff. And that's exactly what 205 Live needs. 205 is branded as a show for good wrestling, and they're starting to tell stories and stuff, but I truly believe this guy could have been something pretty decent on WWE television. And the reason why this is shocking to me is because he does not have the experience level to understand what he put his body through. So this is pretty crappy all around. But if you're the WWE and you don't grant this release, you kind of look like the bad guys, right? And that's why I want to make this video. How do you guys feel about WWE wanting to release a wrestler who is fearful for their health? WWE hasn't responded to this request. Now, obviously, in some time, we'll probably get some sort of confirmation. But it is interesting to hear that a WWE superstar, somebody under the WWE umbrella, is requesting their release because they don't feel like they can be healthy while working in this industry. Now, for those who listen to podcasts and interviews, you guys all know when it comes to certain individuals, they talk about the grueling aspect of this business, and not a lot of people are made for it. And I understand that wholeheartedly, because a guy like Stacy Irvin, who is a gymnast, somebody who definitely is an athlete, somebody who trains and works hard, it's interesting to see a guy like this back away because of a concussion scare. Now, whether WWE responds, that's the real news here. And how they respond is the news here, because WWE is obviously a professional company. They're a publicly traded company. Imagine telling somebody, no, you can't leave our company because you're scared of concussions, because you're scared of personal health. I think it sounds kind of outrageous, but that's the real news here. The real news is how WWE will respond to this. Stacy Irvin Jr. had a lot of potential, but he is not the end-all, be-all for pro wrestling, guys. He's not the top guy. He's not going to AEW. It's nothing like that. There's a guy in NXT Performance Center who is training to be a pro wrestler, and he is scared of concussions. That's what I'm getting out of this. And, how WWE responds to that will really, really show WWE's true intentions as a business. I think you got to put health before fame and money. So it's a very interesting story. But I also want to talk about AEW announcing All In 2. And I want to do this because All In 2 was something that I've talked about previously on the channel. I kind of gave people a calendar, per se. I kind of gave people a series of events and told people this is what you can expect from WWE. Or I'm sorry, from AEW. And it was funny because when I told people, hey, you're going to see AEW run 4 pay-per-views and then start television, a lot of people said, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. But as you know, AEW has Double or Nothing, Fight for the Fallen, and All In 2. All In 2 is expected to take place in Chicago right before TV tapings begin. Not only is this great news, but if you didn't see the announcement, it's all over Twitter at C2E2 in Chicago during the panel. They basically confirmed that they'll be back in Chicago, and they'll be back in Chicago for All In 2, which is fantastic news because All In 2 sold out very, very quickly. All In 1, excuse me. The pay-per-view was phenomenal, but it wasn't under the AEW brand. So now we know that All In 2 may very well become the WrestleMania for All Elite Wrestling. And I kind of like that. When you see what really happened originally with All In and kind of seeing what it's becoming, whether you're a fan of AEW or not, you have to respect the fact that a company like this is they're going all out. They're looking at making big things happen. So I'm very intrigued to see how All In 2 is booked. Whether they make All In a show strictly for AEW roster, or maybe they bring in, some pieces from ROH, maybe some pieces from Impact or New Japan. We saw a little bit of a collaborative effort to put that show together, and obviously that came from the relationships being built from, the other companies. So I'm interested to see what happens, and this could be the death of AEW, If it flops and it's nothing like the first one, a lot of people could get sick and tired of what AEW is. But the quality of these shows will be what determines AEW's success prior going into TV. We want to see everybody do well. We want to see WWE do well. We want to see NXT do well. We want to see ROH, Impact, because that's what thrives this business. That's what moves it so far into successful areas that have never been reached before. So when the wrestling industry isn't doing too well, that's kind of the issue that we get into, right? Like, we start becoming bored of wrestling, and then we start looking at alternatives, and we don't watch it the same. And then, the idea is we want to see this show become successful. And obviously, if AEW could pull on some great pay-per-views, all they got to do is have successful pay-per-views prior to TV, and people will be hooked. But if All In 2 doesn't have that same feeling as All In 1, people will look at it differently. People will be critical of it. And one of the things that made All In successful was the fact that it wasn't being funded by a billionaire. Now that's the difference now. AEW is funded by the Khan family. keep in mind they own professional sports teams. They got money. They got resources. They can pull it off. But AEW, they have to bring that specialty that All In originally brought in. But it's kind of hard to match that when you realize that didn't have any corporate backing. And even though they had resources being used from other companies, it makes a lot of sense in the world. So with that being said, I want to know what you guys think about the NXT release as well as AEW announcing All In 2. Big things happening here on the channel, Destination Pro Wrestling. We got a little bit of gaming, reviews, interviews, vlogs. I'm going to Vegas, baby. It's going to be a good time for Double or Nothing. So with that being said, make sure you guys click that subscribe button, leave a comment down below. And as always, smash that like button, and I will see you guys tomorrow.